How did you
etc.
get through security?
Start from the bottom and you'll work your way up.
Right.
And that just takes way too long.
It's my swag in a box.
We should
Yeah, do something.
Welcome back to
Buckle up, baby.
episode 29. A very exciting day for the Buckle Uppers in the Buckle Up universe as we have our very first guest. Ladies and gentlemen, we present to you Mr. Jeremy Parker.
Thanks so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Michael.
Good to have you here, Jeremy.
Tell the folks who this very special man is.
Jeremy is a longtime listener. And a longtime friend. We were trying to have him. He was like, oh, he's going to be the first guest.
Absolutely.
That was always the
I think
plan.
you've been listening since 2021.
I have from the very beginning.
Yeah.
Wow.
Early days.
Early days.
Single digits of Buckle Up.
Yeah.
Jeremy is a friend. He is co-founder and CEO of Swag.com, a custom ink company recently acquired by Custom Ink. But as far as we are concerned on Buckle Up, I think why we want to talk to Jeremy is an entrepreneur in a way that being an entrepreneur is very fashionable to be right now. Jeremy was doing that before it was fashionable. Sort of in a way, you're a musician,
Right.
Or like in a way, I like to call myself a writer. Like in a way, an artist. A way an artist sort of picks their medium. Jeremy is sort of like an entrepreneur in his bones. That's so. Just like to give an example, Jeremy started a company called Vote for Art right after I got to college, and I was basically interning for Jeremy. I like to say I was working with him, but I was basically interning for him,
I didn't pay him.
which was fine. Yeah, but I mean, I learned a ton. It was really, but we worked constantly. Like we were working like 6 days a week,
Right.
a lot. I wasn't getting paid at all.
We have had Jeremy on to finally.
I was barely getting paid too. So that's all.
We have finally found you on to confront Michael on his past beef. Tell him how you feel.
With interest. There's a specific number I have in mind. No, but we were working really hard for like 2 years. But like more than that, it was like our identity. We were like constantly talking about it, like pitching, whatever. And then one day Jeremy goes in to like get like the next round of funding, and he comes back. He's like, "It's over. They're not giving us the funding. Vote for Art's dead." And I was like heartbroken. I was like, I had no idea what I was gonna do next. I was very, very bummed. And like literally within 24 hours, Jeremy calls me up. We used to talk about Vote for Art constantly on the phone. He calls me up and he's like, "Hey Mike, I have a new idea. What do you think of this idea?" And I'm like, dude, like take a beat. Like it's been less than a day.
Yeah.
And
So you thought he was this businessman, but really he was just a whore.
he's the sociopathic. No,
But it taught you a lesson.
It taught me a lesson in that moment of like I don't think I'm an entrepreneur, and I think Jeremy is an entrepreneur. Like the thing, like you talk about with like you do a project, it doesn't work out, good, move on to the next
There's
thing.
a phrase, right? Shit next.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
And I was
win or learn, as
Right.
they say.
Win or learn. That's a positive mental attitude.
win or learn. You said something also. Your grandfather said once.
We should let Jeremy speak at some point, but we can
The harder you work, the luckier you get.
That's true.
Which I like that also. But anyway, that's what we wanted to talk to Jeremy about, sort of how he thinks about entrepreneurship, but also like all the habits he's cultivated
Right.
and all that.
So on that note, Jeremy, we talk a lot about on this podcast the process of ideas and converting those ideas into actions and into real things. Because so many people, now that entrepreneurship is all the rage, have these ideas. I want to do this. I want to do that. And it's a very frustrating thing to exist in the I want to do place, you know, where you're like, I have this idea for this. And you can spend years in that place. And we talk about what it takes to go from something being a potential to something being real. So can you speak to that? And because you've done it repeatedly with many, many different ideas, they very rarely have stayed ideas in your head. Almost always, if you believe in something, you've at least put it through the ringer to try it in real life.
Yeah, 100%. That's a good question. I think early in my career, I didn't necessarily know the right ideas. Right? So you have an idea and you want it to come to life, but you think you know the right idea. When you're a young entrepreneur in everything you do, you think you have the right answer. And I remember I was doing this business, Vouch, and spent pretty much a year building the platform. I was doing this with my brother and some other partners, and we spent 12 months, a little bit over 12 months, developing the product, building it. And I would lose sleep every single night of, is this the right idea? Is this perfect? And then I would say like, oh, it actually needs to be this thing. Or when they scroll it, the animation needs to this way. And when we launched it, no one wanted to use the app.
Mhm.
And what I realized at that moment
What
is
was
that,
Vouch? If you don't mind me
yeah,
asking?
Vouch was like, we figured that Facebook, every aspect of Facebook, people took a piece of it and monetized it.
Mhm.
So like Snapchat took the poke, and Instagram took the images and monetized it. Twitter took the status update. The idea for Vouch was what you really truly vouch for your favorite things, kind of like the like button. So we want to monetize the like button,
And
which
this was like 2013.
this was like 2013.
Yeah.
And we started building this app about what you actually like, and which is, I think, an amazing idea and really monetizable if you can make it work. So Michael could follow you and see all the music you like, and really you would vouch for your favorite songs, and Michael would be able to discover it. Or he'd follow me for movie recommendations or restaurants, and you could really follow people what they actually truly love and be able to discover. So the idea was there.
It was a cool app. I used it. Like I needed like a date place, and I was like, I went
Yeah.
to Jeremy's like restaurants, and I
Yeah.
found like a really cool restaurant.
It was like it was digitizing word of mouth.
Exactly
into a-
right. And
into a
making it
website.
more than just a like, because on Facebook you press a button, you don't connect to the like. But if you're vouching for something, it lives on your profile. It's everything about you.
So
It's
you put some thought into
put
it.
some thought into
because
it.
you're vouching for it. Like,
Exactly.
I understand you like this one photo. Would you say you would go there again? You don't
Yes,
get a lot of it. It's very
exactly.
low resolution from a like. So a
Exactly.
vouch was a high resolution endorsement of something.
Exactly. So the idea was there, and we had all these celebrity partners, and we had great. What?
You just said that well.
Yeah,
Don't give me a look.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
So we had all these things working for us, and we were building the app. It took us 12 months, and I was lose sleep over every detail. And I launched it, and I realized no one's using it. And all the things I made myself crazy about that I thought was impactful, that was going to move the needle,
Right.
no one really cared about. And all the things I didn't even think about, those were the things that customers really wanted.
Interesting. So what did you get wrong looking back, knowing what you know now in your successful experiences?
Yeah,
What was
I
wrong
thought
with
I had
that?
all the answers, and I didn't. And I think this new experience with Swag, and I learned from it, is that you might have a vision or an idea, but you don't necessarily know all the different. You don't know get from point A to B to C to D. You have like the vision of where you want to go ultimately, but you don't know exactly how to get there.
Mhm.
Launch something right away. It could take a week, it could take a day, it could be a month, but try to make it as fast as possible. Just get things out the door, learn from customers, and adapt it and keep pivoting. Like for Swag, we started making sales from literally the first week that we started the business.
Right.
We did over 300,000 of sales without even having a website, just manual sales, because then I would learn from our customers what we should build, and I would say, oh, this is really insightful. I didn't know that. Like, for example, high level with Swag.
Yeah. What is Swag? Just a quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because swag is what is like the manifestation of like one of the. Would you say it's the first? Not successful, but the one that
Yeah.
really took off on the heels of everything you've done. It led to swag, and that's where you are now.
100%.
Right.
By far the most successful thing I've ever done. I've had one company that sold previously, which was a success. But this is
This is like Nachas parents, and Nachas,
Yeah.
for those who don't know, his
Yeah.
parents being like, so
Yeah.
yeah, now he's like,
Yeah.
Jewish parents can say he's doing something.
yeah, exactly.
Right. So it was Swag was acquired by a bigger Swag
Much-
company.
yeah, much
and,
bigger
And now
company.
you're part of them.
Swag is
right?
apparel, it's graphics for companies.
Yeah. So basically, swag.com is really focused on the B2B market. So we help companies like Amazon, Facebook, Google, Netflix, etc., do custom promotional products. So branded t-shirts, notebooks, water bottles, umbrellas, pens, mugs, all the different stuff. We also allow these companies to buy swag, hold an inventory, and then easily distribute the swag to multiple different addresses. So if you're an HR manager, you want to onboard a new hire, easily send swag to people. If you're an office manager who wants to, keep the company culture thriving, send them swag individually. Or marketing teams engaging with your best customers, etc. That's what swag was to the very beginning, but we didn't know exactly who the right buyer was from day one. That was kind of, but I learned from this previous company, Vouch, and what went wrong, how to change it. So first year, we didn't know exactly how to build the right platform for everybody, but we knew that we wanted to learn, and we knew that we had an idea of who the customer could be. So I initially thought the customer was the marketing team, because the marketing team has the biggest budget. Right, you think of like a marketing team in a business; they have the biggest budget.
You're trying to like figure out actual marketing, who to
Yeah.
target the sales to. Which
Yes.
part of a business would this appeal to?
Exactly
Who
right.
can I help here?
Your audience.
Exactly. And we didn't know. We knew we wanted to sell to businesses, but who within the company? There's so many different divisions within the company that buy swag.
But had the company been built, the product been built first?
Nothing. Nothing was built.
So you were starting with
Zero.
Well,
Right.
you started with
The swag.com domain name.
domain name.
So my idea from the very beginning was
the idea.
the idea. The idea was this. I wanted to focus on the B2B buyer. That was number one. I wanted to focus on an industry that was incredibly fragmented, that was kind of broken,
Yeah.
that had a changing buyer. So the buyer 10 years ago was like a 40-year-old office manager. The buyer today is a millennial.
Right.
So how do they purchase swag differently than they used to? And maybe build the right platform for today's buyer.
How did they do that? How do they make those
It's
choices?
very manual. It's like it used to be like phone calls, back and forth emails, you show up, it's really manual. And now we want to transition it to completely automated. You find what you like, you upload your logo, you mock it up, you check out instantly.
Can I take that back 1 second? Like you said, you wanted to focus on B2B, which is business to business, which was completely different than the way you were talking about with your previous company. Like previously, from talking to you, you want to build the next Instagram, like some huge unicorn $1 billion company, and then you transition to like, I just want a company that makes a little bit of money. Like how did that happen?
Well, we came off of 3 years of building this complete consumer social networking app that didn't work out, and it was so hard. It's like the hardest thing in the world to build a social networking app.
Right.
And I wanted the next business, whether it had scalability, that was not the biggest concern. The biggest concern was, can I actually make money and provide for myself?
Right.
I'm 30 years old, single, living in New York, no money coming in. How do I even pay a normal salary to be like a normal functioning person?
Right.
That was it. It wasn't about like, now the company has 85 employees and we're doing millions of sales a year. That wasn't the goal initially. The goal initially was, can I pay myself a salary? So I wanted to figure out like, can I go to Facebook and make a sale and then take a percentage of that margin and just pay myself?
Right.
But while we were doing these early days of conversations, we learned a lot. We learned that there wasn't anything like what we were trying to do. We learned that the buyer that we should be going after, no one was going after it. So we initially thought, like the whole industry thought, marketing teams, they have the biggest budget. Let's sell to them. But really, it should be the office manager. And that's what we noticed, because the office manager, much smaller budget, no one's going to them, but they're the Trojan horse, right? If an office manager buys 50 t-shirts for their company, they give that t-shirt to every other employee in the company. That means the marketing team says a swag.com t-shirt. Everyone is discovering us through the office manager.
Right. So it went from very macro in your previous endeavors to these grand visions to very specific micro strategizing.
Yes.
But using all the skills that you had acquired in the previous endeavors to say, okay, now let's get smart here and focused.
Exactly right.
It's so funny because the light bulbs are going off in my head because it's so similar to the artist community and creative endeavors where, in the early days, you want to put out all your stuff and you have this grand vision of success. And I can speak as a musician, you put out a record and you want it, and you put all these years and sweat and tears into a record and nobody listens to it. And you're like, it's similar to what happened with Vouch, where you put in all these things and nobody listens. And you're like, what happened? What? And you're not thinking like an entrepreneur, like a businessman, like someone who's developing product. All those things sound yucky to you when you're an artist. But when you start to get smart about it, you're like, okay, where is music being found? Where is it being heard? And that took me and my band to the licensing community where they were licensing music for film and TV. So we said, let's write songs and target these areas where our songs can actually live and sustain us and make us a living. There's such a strong parallel there about using all the skills you learned creatively and artistically, like you did at Vouch, and applying it with a strategic business mind to say, okay, how can we turn our art into business and sustain ourselves doing it?
And you're still creative. You're still super creative. You're just doing it a little bit better, or maybe focusing on the right things to be creative about.
Right. That's
Yes, something you did early on, I remember, was you gave a discount if the company let you print swag.com on the label. On the shirt, you would give them a discount because you had learned, like, where did that come from? That was like a big thing.
Yeah,
right?
Early on, we had no customers, right? So our idea was we have to be logo hunters. That was our initial, like, it kind of made it a game and fun. Let's get the biggest brand names that we could get to be a customer.
Sounds like a National Geographic show. Logo.
Two
graphic designers on an island alone, looking for the perfect logo, tattooed on their naked backs. Logo hunters. Keep going.
Yeah, exactly. So our idea was, what if we get Facebook as a customer? Because then we could put Facebook on the website that still said coming soon. We didn't have a website, but we could show like a blue chip row of logos of people who have worked with us before.
Yeah, how do you do that? So that's a big one. Like, okay, let's.
Yeah. So,
Mark.
Yes,
but it also comes from an understanding of like no one's going to use us unless people already use
all
us.
social.
Yeah, the
proof.
chicken or egg problem.
It's a social proof, and everyone in business always like, oh, you'll ultimately get there. Start from the bottom and you'll work your way up.
Right.
And that just takes way too long.
Right.
So our feeling was like, what if you could start from the top and work your way down, and then, right? It's a little bit better.
Right,
So
sure.
we got a deal with Facebook as our first customer. Now we got into the company. We knew somebody who got us into the office, but we were chutzpah to the max. We took over an office in Facebook. You know, like just imagine like a big, huge office
With guns?
There's an empty office room.
Chutzpah.
Yeah, chutzpah. Empty office room.
Look, guys, it takes too long. It takes too long. It takes long. Put the gun down, Jeremy. It takes too long. I vouch for you.
We need one logo and then we'll leave.
I vouch for you. Put the gun down. I vouch for you. That's a negotiation. I vouch for you. Okay, so you took over an office in what
Yeah.
sense?
We just showed up at a small room.
In like Silicon Valley? Or?
No, New York City.
Okay.
New York City office.
Yeah.
And we just put all of our swag on the table, and people expected like, oh, you guys got approval. Like we were setting up our own like swag shop,
Right.
and people would walk by and people would stop.
You would
and-
And you printed it with the Facebook logo.
no, nothing with Facebook logo.
Okay,
It was
sorry.
literally just blank goods, and people would walk by like, what are you guys doing here? And me and my co-founder Josh were like, yeah, we're just offering swag. We want to be helpful,
How did you
etc.
get through security?
We had a connection, a friend.
Oh, you had
who-
an in.
No, they were allowed in the office.
Yeah, allowed in the office.
They weren't allowed to set up.
Exactly. Definitely not.
I'm
allowed to
picturing
set
you
up.
on the glass outside. Dun, dun, dun,
No,
dun,
no,
cutting
no.
a hole in. Okay, so you were allowed in.
Allowed in. And tons of people go into the Facebook office and have lunch with friends and all
right.
these different things. So we were there. And we just kind of set up.
And if I had to imagine your co-founder was like, Jeremy, we cannot do this. And you're like, we have to.
Well, you have to.
Yeah.
You have to do
You're
it.
basically saying we already belong here. You're just kind of living that.
Yeah, and it
sort
wasn't
of
like a
thing.
big. It wasn't like we like put a sign swag.com room. We just put some stuff on the table and we
Yeah.
took over like a small office. Just imagine like a WeWork. You just take over. A room.
Right. And what was your pitch? People walk by. Well, hey.
Hey, yeah, we're selling swag. We have the highest quality. People would walk by. People like, oh, that's cool. One person came by and she's like, yeah, I actually need some T-shirts for like an internal event. I said, great. We gave her an amazing deal, like literally like broke even on it,
Yeah.
but we didn't care. It was just
Yeah.
about getting the Facebook logo.
Mm-hmm.
So our first T-shirt order ever was Facebook. And then we went to WeWork. I remember it's 2 days later. Josh and I showed up at the WeWork office, and there was a big thing called the WeWork Summer Camp coming up. I don't know if you remember. It's like 5,000 people all go to the summer camp. And we're like, we have to win this deal because every T-shirt, we're going to print the swag.com logo and the inner label.
Everyone goes for the summer and sleeps with the CEO one day.
Yeah, people give out these T-shirts, and it basically is a way to introduce.
If only that was their problem.
right. Yeah.
But when they basically said to us, "Can you guys do this? Who else do you work with?" We said Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't lie. Obviously, I don't like lying. We said Facebook, but they didn't ask who
Beyond
else
that.
besides Facebook.
Oh yeah. Okay. They just need that filter.
They just need Facebook. Oh, you work with Facebook? Great. We're probably okay for you guys. So we did the T-shirt. We won the deal with WeWork. I think we actually lost money. We lost money on that order.
But you gain value.
Gained value. We had all my parents,
one.
my grandma, my aunts and uncles rolling T-shirts.
Yeah.
Josh and I rented a U-Haul, drove it
Big
down
order
4
of
hours.
like yeah.
5,000, about 5,000 T-shirts.
God.
A lot of rolling of T-shirts.
Yeah.
Because of course we could do it.
Was that the weekend of my wedding?
Yes,
Then you
exactly.
Like, you came to my wedding like so exhausted.
Yeah, well, the weekend of the wedding was the actual WeWork summer
You
camp.
enrolled your grandmother in a sweatshop.
Yeah, 100%. I
I'm
picked just to
proud
prove it.
of you, darling. Oh God. You
Yeah.
forced labor upon it.
Yeah, exactly.
first
And they wanted to do it. They were happy to
No,
do
that's
it.
great.
But that one contract got us so many new customers because everyone's wearing the shirts and sees the quality and sees who made this swag.com. It becomes like business cards, customers sending out business cards.
Yeah.
So we realized the power of if we could connect ourselves to the products that we're offering, like printing the inner label,
Yeah.
it really allows us to expand. So we were growing tremendously that first year.
Printing the inner label is what?
So swag.com on the inner label of every t-shirt. Like think about this. Like,
yes. What is this from? Oh, it's American Apparel. I'll order from them.
Exactly. When you buy a pair of jeans, like you probably bought this a couple years ago, and it looks cooler the more you wear jeans. But with
Right.
swag, it's inherently meant to be given away.
Right.
So you buy it, you give it away, and also swag.com on the inner label. All of our customers are marketing us.
Right. You're like planting these seeds around in business to business.
And you're like handpicking the T-shirts, right? So you're,
The best
you're never
products.
giving away an uncomfortable.
No, it
crappy
has to be the
t-shirt.
best
It's always
quality
the
stuff.
best, yeah.
Everything on our site is like curated, tested, vetted, the best
Right.
quality. And we've extended. Now we allow companies to.
This was like the Tees with Tats days coming to.
It's all
it's
connected.
coming.
Right,
It's
so
all
It
that
really
was-
does. It all,
yeah.
it
You
all
had a
does.
T-shirt company
Yes,
when you were in college, and now
Yeah.
this was your second try doing a T-shirt
Now,
company.
if you okay, there's a couple things I really got to zone in on that's really fascinating and interesting, and I think a lot of people can learn from this. It's a couple things you seem to really understand, you got a sensibility for, which was the social aspect of this. I don't mean in a digital social media space. I mean in like the person-to-person psychology. That all you have to say to somebody is that you knew that you needed that Facebook client so that somebody could just feel comfortable.
Yep.
and it gave you a sense of credibility, and it gave immediate credibility so that somebody can filter out, okay, you guys aren't nobodies. There's something to it. They don't ask beyond that. And it's not like deceptive. It's true, but you knew it had to be real. And when you're working with somebody, like, you inherently understood that that's going to get you, that first egg. And also, the being process oriented as opposed to goal oriented. When it came to Vouch and these other things that didn't pan out to the maybe vision you had for them initially, they were seeds that were giving you these tools and like weapons. You initially, we didn't discuss it, but you had a t-shirt tattoo fusion idea company, which eventually got stored here in your arsenal to be applied once swag came about. And same thing with Vouch, which you really got to understand the ins and outs of what it means to build something to try to compete with the big boys. And even though it didn't compete with the big boys, it got you to this place where you sort of built up that muscle. And then when it applied to swag, it was all there. So I think a lot of people look at certain endeavors like, well, I failed at that, and I failed at that, and I failed at that. But they forget that these are all systems in place that give you a skill stack to be applied to eventually something. That's the recipe for success, are these building blocks. It's not this lottery.
You perfectly said it. Every entrepreneur, everyone
Thank you so much, everybody. That's episode.
No, with everything, like swag.com, we've been in business for about 7 years. People think that's so fast. Like, you built this massive company in 7.5. It's no. I've been building this stuff and failing at it and learning and failing at it for 10 plus years before that. And no one's overnight success. It's so rare. There's like 1 in a million.
And if they are, they're in trouble.
Yeah, it's
right,
it's
because they have no weapons.
Yep.
It's all of a sudden like they've been placed at the front of the line, and they're like, and they're not ready for it.
And by the way, when things go wrong, like when things went wrong in swag, this is COVID hit. Just imagine COVID in a swag industry type of world. No events. No one's going to the office anymore. The whole reason to buy swag is
social.
Nothing. It's nothing. I'm getting calls from all my investors being like, we should, do something. How are we going to conserve money? These are normal.
We should
do something. Yeah, no, but seriously, it was very.
Thank you, investor. Wise one. We should do something. Should I set up a Zoom call with a T-shirt?
How about this? We do nothing.
No, but it was very, very, very scary. And our sales legitimately fell off the face of the earth. It went from like 800,000 one month to 300,000 the next month.
So what was that pivot?
The pivot was crazy. It was like I had this arsenal of like, I got to start throwing everything against the wall to try to figure out what stuck. And when we realized that stuck was this distribution platform, the ability to allow people to buy something, we warehouse it, and then we could distribute individually different remote addresses. If no one's in the office, if company culture is being lost.
Or you get Zoom as a client.
Well, you could do that too. You can get definitely focus. Seriously, that's part of it. Focusing on the ones that are actually succeeding.
The players, right?
The players. But more than that, if everyone's disconnected, everyone's remote, no one's going to that trade show. How do you build like the next gen swag company that could live and survive in this space?
Right.
We went from dropping down and almost falling off the face of the earth to doubling our previous year sales.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna rewrite history though. I'm sure you've told that story so many times to so many people during interviews, but I think the real way the story went is this.
Can I tell me?
Before COVID, you called me up and you said, I have this idea.
Yep.
It's called Swag Closet.
Yes.
And I think it's really good.
Yes.
And so you started developing this sort of offsite distribution center before COVID started.
True. Yes.
And you followed that intuition and you built the product, and then COVID hit, and you already no one really needed it yet.
Yep.
Then COVID hit, all of a sudden everyone needed it, and as the competition fell away,
so Weber has insider info. That is 100% true.
So
you came out of the swag closet. Tell us.
Yes, but here's the thing.
No, but I have a question about it, which is like it's that process of you're working on something that no one quite understands yet, and you can't even quite articulate why you think it's so important. And sometimes, and then the timing works out. But like, how do you keep motivated on working on those things before the timing is there?
It's a great question.
And is it your adaptability that you've built up over the years?
It's part of that, but this specific thing, we were in Chicago. I was in a tech program called Techstars in Chicago. It's like a 3-month incubator. Part of Techstars is they connect you to other local leaders in the area, and you could kind of brainstorm ideas. So one of these meetings is a company called Jellyvision. They're a Chicago-based company, 200 plus employees at the time. They're probably a lot bigger now. And the CEO...
Fat girl porn?
Was it?
I'm sorry.
So the company calls me up and they say, Jeremy, you want... Jellyvision, yeah.
Jellyvision?
Yeah, so the company calls me...
Ooh, we're getting... that was good. Yeah.
The company calls me up and said, Jeremy, you want to come see our office? So I go to meet the CEO, and I walk into one of the rooms, and there's 10 office managers or so on the floor boxing things up themselves. And I thought that seems like wildly inefficient. Like people are buying swag, boxing up themselves, writing handwritten note cards. So this is 2017.
Yeah.
Obviously way before the pandemic hit. And I thought, why can't we do that for them? Why do we have to ship everything to them, which is the historical normal way to do it, and let them do it?
They're sending gift items to employees or clients.
Employees and clients, and what they're doing is they're buying from different vendors and they're sourcing it, and they're boxing it up, and they're writing note cards, and it just seemed like wild. And I was talking to the office managers there, and they're like, "Yeah, we've been doing this for 4 days." It just seemed like crazy. So like we're thinking, how do we make this whole process easier? If they're buying from us, why can't we consolidate? Why can't we kit it? Why can't we box it? Why can't we write handwritten note cards for them and allow things to be easily distributed?
Yeah.
So we started to build this in 2018, 2019. It's complicated. There's so many moving parts. You have to integrate with
need
3PLs.
a storage facility.
Storage
I mean,
facilities,
you're
and
doing
3PLs,
And not sexy stuff.
the most boring, unsexy part.
Right.
And we were just deep in it. But we knew that if it was a big issue for this one company, it's probably a big issue for others. Now, we didn't know COVID was going to hit. We didn't know it was a necessity. But we thought that maybe 10 to 20%
They
of
wouldn't
our
even be
clients,
in the office eventually to do this.
right, but we figured that whether they send it to remote employees, maybe that's a big thing. But they're definitely going to be needing to send boxes to their best leads and customers. We always felt like account-based marketing, we call it, is sending stuff to people in the mail to convert them.
Yeah.
We didn't realize it would be for everything, and for office managers and HR and onboarding and sales teams closing leads and humanizing virtual events.
Yeah.
And so we had this platform that was ready to go in 2020, January.
Yeah.
COVID hits, the timing is perfect. Now, we didn't do a good job before because we weren't really planning on promoting it to market it, to educate the customer.
Front
that we
and
had
center.
this.
Front and center.
It
It,
was
would
like-
be a feature.
It was a
of what
feature, it was a small thing in the footer, but when we realized, wow, we need to change our whole thing, we redesigned our homepage, we redesigned the landing page, we redesigned all of our marketing. We stopped marketing this way, and we started marketing 100% distribution, and we were the only ones who frankly had this platform that could allow distributions. So when the whole market, tanked 20, 30, 40%, we grew 100%.
Yeah.
And it's because we were in the right, we had the right product at the right time, but we had the right product because we were listening to our customers 2 years ahead of everybody.
Sure.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, we had a similar process with my band with Distant Cousins when we were doing these in-person songwriting workshops. When we would go on tour, we'd write a song with a local group at a school or a synagogue or a community center or a nonprofit, or even I think we spoke about it once, coming into Swag and doing a thing where it's like a team building exercise where we would get together and write a song and record it like an outline sketch of it in a little over an hour and take people through the songwriting process. And it was a great team building exercise. And we would also use it as a way to help fund our touring. When we would go somewhere, we would be able to do a couple workshops. And then COVID hit, and we took the whole thing and adapted it virtual. And at first, it felt like a huge handicap until we realized with Zoom. And I'm not one of these people that's like, oh, with Zoom, everything's just as good.
Yeah.
No, I like being in person. But what Zoom can do for you is it totally expanded it. So we were working with groups in Israel and New York and Chicago and DC and doing things all over. And we would do it all on Zoom and using the features of Zoom to help go into breakout rooms and do these interesting things to be creative. And it exploded that business because nobody else was prepared to do that. And there was nobody doing that. All these like human resources departments and managers were like, we need something for our team. We're not together. And they were craving what you're talking about, like humanizing the digital experience. So that's what we did. But no, it's a fast. I think what we're talking about a lot is this adaptability muscle you've built over the years too, where something goes, it's like, okay, I'm just a navigator here on this entrepreneurial ship, and now like here's where we steer, because that's where the tide is. You can't say no, I'm just gonna push through it. It's like no, you got to go this way now and make it work here, not and learn how to kill your babies. Like this homepage, I love our homepage.
Yes.
No.
You have to remove ego as an entrepreneur. I've realized like you can have all the ideas in the world, they could be the wrong ideas. So you have to be open to things changing or learning from your customers or learning from a team member.
Right.
And it's like, who
Not getting
cares?
precious.
Yeah, who cares about any idea? Ideas is such like it's really about the execution.
Right.
And it's simple to say, but it's not simple to execute that.
No.
Yeah, something you're really good at. I remember the story you told me once where, you bought swag.com because you wanted to come up first on the results. But that you bought the domain name swag.com. But then you were like second. There was one ahead of you. And instead of getting pissed off about it or like losing hope, you figured out a way to get the first results to publish your blog posts. So then whenever someone went to the first results, they would pretty much be going to swag.com.
Oh, he hacked a search and SEO kind of thing where
Yeah.
you
Well,
would show up as your own review.
Yes, no. So basically,
but it wasn't. Yeah, you tell the story. Then
so
I have a
basically,
question.
we were trying to figure out SEO. SEO is such a powerful tool, right?
Search engine optimization.
Optimization, like how you come across in the search results organically, not paying for
Right.
it. So there's different kind of keywords that are very important for swag. One of the keywords were swag ideas. So someone's Googling swag ideas, they're most likely a company. They're most likely in the research phase. And we wanted to come up for that specific term. We came up second or third for that term. But the first one was another company, and they had an article, top 75 swag ideas or so. And they were linking to themselves. They were not necessarily a swag business. They were a different industry.
An
but
aggregator of.
an aggregator of different things. And what we did is we got them to replace all the links on that blog post to swag.com.
How did you do that?
We gave them a little commission. We like kind of said like, hey, you get leads to us, we're going to give you a percentage of our sales. So now the
Wow.
first and second was ostensibly swag.com. Now, because our SEO got better, we leap jumped them. Now we
How did you have two different links? What were they, different sites or
No,
just
no,
different pages of your site?
well, we have 5,000 products. So like on the
Oh.
page itself, it would say like, get this Sobu water bottle, and it will link to a swag.com landing page for that. Get this Moleskine notebook, and it will link to. So we were always for a year. They were first, was really us. We were second, and now our SEO has gotten better. Now we're first, and they're like third or fourth.
So
at
the
this
question I have is where do you think, or how do you cultivate that habit of seeing a challenge as an opportunity, which I think you're pretty good at, and not getting sort of like upset and sad and disheartened, but being like, how can I use this? How can I use
Yeah,
this?
it's a challenge. It's a challenging skill to get, and I think it happens over time. I remember when I was younger, there was must have been 8 years old or so. I remember this so vividly. We're in Colorado at a hotel, and my dad was talking to the guy at the front desk, and he was trying to get an upgrade. And the guy said, no. My dad looks at me. I remember this so vividly. He said, you hear that guy say no? He really means yes. He just doesn't know yet. And my dad convinced the guy to get him an upgrade. And I think as an entrepreneur, you have to think that mindset of like, you're going to get hundreds of no's now. Doesn't mean you're going to get hundreds of no's in the future. Maybe you could learn something from that no, change what you're doing, pivot, make it a little bit better so that you're undeniable. Like early on, Amazon said no to us hundreds of times. I tried to sell to Amazon because Amazon was one of those companies I wanted. I wanted Facebook.
Street cred.
I wanted street cred. And they said no, so many times. Now Amazon's one of our biggest customers, and they buy tons of stuff from us. And we have 30 individuals at Amazon from different departments who are all buying from us, and we're warehousing stuff from us. And they're doing giveaways where they're sending links to thousands of their employees to fill out T-shirt sizes and address. It's all getting powered by swag.com.
Wow.
And we didn't have the right solution for them back then. It wasn't because we weren't good. It was we didn't have what they needed, and we took the criticism and we took the no's, and we said, well, maybe we could keep going, but we'll improve it and we'll pivot and we'll change it. And I think just having the mentality that like anything is really possible as long as you're open to changing and you're going to be adaptable.
How much of it was the chicken and egg thing where once you had things going, then the same exact presentation to the same exact entity was like, yeah, we'll take you now.
It's
'Cause
possible.
They're so risk averse.
It's very possible.
And some of it's very obviously the no's can be informative, but sometimes it's just like, I'm not going to be that guy that green lights it this early or that entity. Then you come around to the sea, walk through the same hallway, and everyone's like, hey,
Yeah.
And that's a part of it. That's just a part of the game.
People get down. Everyone, creatives get down. Entrepreneurs get down. If you get no's or things don't happen, you write a screenplay, it doesn't pay off, or you write a song, it doesn't get. You get this negativity, and you feel like I'm not good enough, right? Maybe it's like maybe I'm not doing, and maybe it's just no, I just didn't do it right. I got to do something a little bit different, and I got to win. And
That's such it. Yeah, it's there's a real. It's a very unclear answer as to where to draw the line between I am good enough, but I'm just going to adapt and use it this way, or no, I'm going to use this information and or maybe they're saying the same thing, because you do come across. Have you come across people who are in your space and you're like, no, this guy's doesn't have it.
100%.
But if you told him that, he would say, he said I didn't have it, and that I just used to have it. You know what I'm saying? You come across artists, you come across creatives, you come across anybody doing something. Maybe you as the person judging is wrong, but you also kind of aren't.
You could be wrong.
I guess you could be.
You could be wrong.
You come across people who like don't have what you're talking about, this ability to adapt or whatever, but they think they do, and then they'll take your negative feedback and keep using it to perpetuate something that is not going to work. So where am I getting that wrong?
No,
I don't
well,
know.
'cause
That's
I
a.
think-
It's just that I don't have the answer.
Yeah, I think
It's
I think
undecided.
if someone who is let's just say I'll use myself as an example as a writer and is listening to you talk, I think the natural inclination is to go, well, yeah, because Jeremy does business, but I do art. So like he's not trying to do something great. He's just trying to serve whatever people want and make money off them. But I do think the longer you try to be a professional artist, the more you start to realize like the reason my things aren't working isn't because they're wrong. It's because it's not undeniable yet. And like and you do need to find this middle ground of like you're not going to compromise on what you set out to do, which is like in your case, like we're selling swag. If our customers say like they want dildos now, we're not going to just sell them that just because they want. Like we're going to sell swag. Like I'm going to write it.
Well, they have a product launch coming. Don't give it away.
Like we're gonna like I'm gonna write a horror
Dildo December, right? It's
screenplay.
coming up. Dildo December 2022. It's really
I'm gonna
exciting.
write a horror screenplay about this place and time with these characters, but like if we keep sending it out and it's not working, I need to change the story up a little bit. Like you need to change the whatever you're doing up a little bit to get the reaction you want. But I think what you're really good at is not putting up that wall and going like, well, that doesn't apply to me. Like you're just very open to winning. So you're like, what do I have to do to win?
Yeah,
What
100%.
do I have to do to get this place to publish my song or publish my story?
And also removing the fear of failure, because a lot of people don't even take the because they're terrified
Right.
of what happens if I put myself out there and people don't like it.
Sure.
So many entrepreneurs I talk to all the time now reach out. I get constant people on LinkedIn. Hey, Jeremy, I saw that you built this company. I would love to pick your brain. And if I help them and I talk to them, they're all so nervous about launching something and not working. And I think once you kind of flip off that switch of like, I don't care. It doesn't matter if you fail. You're way ahead.
In a way,
Is that what it is? Sorry to cut you off. I just want to ask: is it doesn't matter if we fail, or
'Cause it kinda does
or
eventually.
we can't fail because we're going to keep learning until we
That's
win.
it.
yeah.
Exactly.
There's no failure here.
There's so many different features that we built that if we just stopped at the moment we launched it and didn't work out, it would never work out. We have this swag in the box initiative. We started 2 years ago.
That's the dildo thing. It's my swag in a box.
By the way, it was taken from that. The swag.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
It's my swag in a
Yeah.
box. Oh yeah, reach into the thing and
Yeah.
pull out a mug.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Aw.
So when we launched that, we got no sales the first 2 months, and we had a lot of our team members be like, "It's never going to work." You know,
Yeah.
people get very negative. It wasn't gonna work. We launched 6 iterations of that same feature. Now we do over 33% of our sales. That's
Right.
Swag in the Box initiative, because we knew that the idea made sense. We just didn't know how to get from point A to B to C. And you kind of learn it and change it.
Sounds like the thread is, as an important point through all of this, winning is doing it, not the result you get from doing it, but just doing it is your first win. Because, like you said, so many people are afraid to try anything out of fear of the ultimate results not working out the way they expected, or whatever their vision is, not panning out to that result. But I saw some TikTok, someone's like, look, people can criticize me all they want. At least I'm trying to do it. At least I'm engaged in this process and doing it. Which way it pans out, I'm doing it. And in doing it, you're gaining something. Something. It's that how to fail at everything and still win big. Every process you engage in gives you something, even if it doesn't give you what you initially expected. One thing that is an argument in favor of the person who you don't think has it, but maybe they eventually will, is that the more you do something, you have to get better at it.
By the
That's
way,
just the repetition.
I guarantee when I was speaking to people 12 years ago, I'm sure there was meetings like, that kid does not have it.
Right.
100%, because I didn't at that point. You learn, you get better.
Right.
I'm a completely different person than I was in high school. Like, I can imagine people in high school,
Yeah.
if they heard that I'm running this company, we got acquired, they would be completely shocked.
Right.
I was the kid in the learning center. Like, there's no way they would have thought Jeremy Parker was able to do this and be the CEO of a company.
Right.
Right.
But so is it a question of who can weather it the longest? Is it just the long game? But it's also a mindset. Like, you've also been adaptable.
Yeah.
So maybe it's that the person who's still not succeeding after just as long a time as you, is it that he or she is not having the right attitude? They're being too precious about things. They're staying in their corner. In other words, is it purely like deterministic? Like, Jeremy has it. It just took it. He got it. And that's a big question in the art. Like, this person has it or he doesn't. At the same time, I saw a set of Louis C.K. From very old days, and you watch the set and you're like, is this guy going to one day be the biggest comedian in the world? You'd be like, no, he doesn't have it. So that's an argument in favor. And I go back and forth on it all the time, because that determinism can be very discouraging or encouraging. If you think you have it, it's very encouraging.
I don't think it's a straight line, though. I think there's like certain things like like I feel like I have something now, but
Mhm.
if I started doing Vouch, if I kept doing these moonshot ideas,
Yeah.
I might never have it, and everyone would look. Jeremy just didn't make it. He just
Another
didn't have
pipe
it.
dream, Jeremy.
Exactly.
Right.
I think I had to learn that maybe I'm not the guy to launch the next Facebook, but maybe I'm the guy to launch the next this company
Yeah.
that was more manageable, that I could
Right.
be creative and also make money and do it this way.
Right.
So I think a lot of it is getting better. Now, if I launched Vouch 2.0, I'm sure I would have got further along with it,
Mhm.
but it still might not have
Right.
reached, you know?
Right.
So I
But
think
doing it itself is the win. Engaging with it is sort of that first victory.
yes, 100%.
So along that path, from the time you were in high school up
Mhm.
until you started a company
Mhm.
and sold it, can you talk a little bit about the experience of watching your other friends
Mhm.
find success really quickly? So
Mhm.
like, I think what's particularly interesting about you is you didn't just go to like any high school. You're not just from like any community. You
Mhm.
went to like a very good prep school
Mhm.
on like the Upper East Side, and like you're from a community that's like very successful.
Mhm.
So like your friends weren't just like sort of getting by and having
Mhm.
fun. Like they were like running hedge funds. They were
Mhm.
like partners at law firms,
Mhm.
like retiring at 30 after
Mhm.
like developing like real estate. Like
Mhm.
you had like these insanely successful friends, and you were starting business after business that
Mhm.
wasn't taking off. Like between those businesses, like what was it like to watch your friends find sort of like that, not easy, but
Mhm.
like go along a more traditional path
Mhm.
and find success really young?
Yeah.
And
I-
deal with that perception.
Yeah,
you know?
I was happy for all my friends. You know, for me, I never compared myself to anyone as an entrepreneur. It's easier said than done, but I
Mhm.
really didn't. I just felt like it wasn't my time.
Mhm.
That's why I really felt that. And for my friends that came easy, I wished I had their ability to not be an entrepreneur.
Mhm.
Entrepreneur is it's the hardest possible job you can think of.
Right.
You're inventing the future. You're creating something completely out of nothing,
Mhm.
and you're in many ways destined to fail. Like you're not supposed to succeed.
I look at it like the same way I do for any artist.
Yeah.
Entrepreneurs and
Yeah.
artists, there's really no difference. It's just the product is
Yep.
different. But you're creating something from nothing and
100%.
trying to create a demand for it
100%.
out of nothing. And you're not going into any sort of fixed hierarchical structure that's going to just give you a salary that's significant. And within 3 years, there's a track. There is no clear
Mhm.
path. It's all disentangled and it's all tangled up in this mess. And there's
Mhm.
no path. You just have to. You're going into the jungle.
Yeah.
It's very similar. So,
Yeah. So,
but can you speak to that? Like,
yeah.
I'm sure you're sitting there. You know, I mean, look, saying you're a musician or a writer maybe gets in our community gets one sort of reaction, but saying you're an entrepreneur trying
Oh,
to do
yeah,
things probably
yeah.
gets maybe not as like confused because it's still business.
No. You get,
Yeah,
you get
but-
confused. You get people looking. You be like, "You're unemployed." You 100%.
Yeah, I'm
especially-
sure like by the third, fourth company. You
yeah,
know?
third, fourth company. 100%.
I don't know. He did this thing. It's not around anymore. And there's people like rooting
Yeah.
before people are rooting for you to succeed. They're rooting. There's almost a projection of this sense of it makes other people feel good in their stable decisions when things don't work out for you.
100%.
And then you kill it, and then they're like so happy for you.
Yeah.
And it goes the complete opposite way overnight.
Yeah.
Everyone
Yeah.
sees you. And both responses are genuine.
Yeah.
They're not like faking it when they're happy for you, but they're just like, I don't know. But then they're like, no, he's really,
Yeah.
you know. So
100%.
how's that been?
It is a challenge, especially right before Swag. I was 30 years old, and
Mhm.
in the modern Orthodox community we're from,
Yeah.
if you're single and you're 30, it's like you're late. You're late to the party. And then now you're single and you're 30 and you're like unemployed.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Those things are like, oh my lord,
Fun employed.
fun. And I was never in my mindset unemployed. It was like I was
Yeah.
pre-starting the next
Right,
thing.
but
Right.
people looked at you.
Yeah.
Look at me because I know you, and
Yeah.
I never thought of you of that way. But I know people looked at you like.
Oh,
like you
everyone
were
talks about it all
unemployed.
the
I know, I
time.
know.
Like all the time.
No, but yeah,
Yeah.
how do you deal with that
Yeah.
outside pressure of like I know I'm not something that
Yeah.
everyone else sees me as.
Yeah,
you
I
know?
didn't care about it.
You
If
just
I'm being
didn't
honest,
care,
I
yeah.
did
Yeah.
not care less. Now, if I didn't become successful when I was 45, then maybe I would. Like, you can't
Yeah.
predict the future, but I really just said I couldn't care less. I wanted people to be happy, be successful,
Right.
do your thing. I wish I had that in me to want to work at a company, show up at a law firm.
Mhm.
That's easy.
You wish you were content with that.
I wish I was content, and I
Right.
tried to work at one company, and I quit legitimately. And Michael knows this. Within 3 hours, I joined. Literally, it's not even a joke.
Poor company.
This is not even a joke. I was. I'm not gonna say the name, but I was hired as head of business development for this app right
Mhm.
after Vouch, company Vouch failed.
Mhm.
And I show up first day of work, and I'm meeting the whole team, and I call my dad. This is literally 30 minutes in. I rush to the bathroom with calling my dad. I'm like, Dad, I'm quitting. My dad's like, give it a day. Give it one day. I'm like, I can't do it. Hour later,
I don't believe you. Your no is a yes to me. Remember, he doesn't know what that means.
I talked to the CEO and I basically did bring up like, it's not you, it's me. Literally, I
Yeah.
had that conversation with the CEO. I'm like, I don't think you need me. I'm not the right guy for this role.
Yeah.
And I quit. And I remember that day I'm walking the streets of New York City. I'm like,
It's a crystallizing experience.
I'm like,
though,
what
is it
is
not?
wrong with me? I'm like, I cannot hold a job down for a day. What is wrong with me? But I'm telling you, you feel like this internal voice that's saying, get out of here. This is not what you're meant to do. And then I start swag like,
It starts to scream when you're in that position. It's
Yeah.
not just a whisper. Now it's like,
Yeah.
stop!
yeah, get the freak out of this
Yeah.
building.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we joke about it, but now we're looking back, like I would have not have started swag if I didn't get out of that room that day. So
Right. Right.
Yeah.
No, so it sounds like you have a very wholesome, grounded view of the whole thing, which no, as far as people's perception.
No, yeah.
But
no,
also,
it's-
you didn't care. That's
Yep.
good. But in terms of how you observed people's reaction to you,
Mhm.
did you just to go back to this for a second? Like, what do you make of that
oh, no.
analytically?
I knew
about your community?
I knew
What does it speak to about our
Yeah.
community, in your opinion? Because we talk
Yeah.
about it a lot.
Yeah.
Like, we ask ourselves the question, and I think there are legitimate answers. Why is our community so not encouraging? I
Mhm.
wouldn't go as far as say discouraging, but maybe even that
Mhm.
much. Why is it so narrow in terms of
Mhm.
what is expected of you? Like, everybody in the prep school track is like, we want everyone to be well-rounded,
Mhm.
take music, take
Mhm.
this, take the arts, and your liberal
become a
arts.
lawyer,
But don't get too serious about any of that
Yeah.
other stuff if you
Yeah.
like it.
Yeah.
Like it a little.
Yeah.
Like it enough to be serious about it,
Yep.
take it seriously, then you better stop.
Yep.
It better become a hobby. Because
Yep.
after that, all the entire boomer generation goes, I mean, he wants to keep going. Oh
Yeah.
my God. I
Yeah.
mean, I got him, I pushed him to go into New Thing, and
Yeah.
I wanted him to be well-rounded. But just as a student,
Yeah.
Yeah.
as an adult, no. It's time to get serious. And I feel like boomers are being really like, the chickens are coming home to roost in terms of the way boomers were raised to impart certain
Mhm.
pressures on that generation. And now it's like, well, look what's available to so
Mhm.
many people in terms of being able to broadcast themselves on YouTube and
Mhm.
create their own businesses creatively that didn't exist before. So
Mhm.
in a way, they didn't come from that.
Mhm.
Back in the day, for artists or any, even entrepreneurs, you had to be greenlit by bigger
Mhm.
companies and networks to get anywhere. So it really was a much riskier endeavor.
Mhm.
And who could have anticipated the technological boom we're in now that has really emancipated
Mhm.
the creative? And now you have video game players, gamers who are making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year
Mhm.
competing in gamer tournaments, esports tournaments. When back at one time, parents were concerned this was a huge waste of time.
Mhm.
And it turns out it wasn't. But that apparatus is there. That pressure is there. That you better stop it from becoming a
Mhm.
hobby. Like what do you?
Yeah,
make of
I
that?
had super lucky because my parents were so chill.
Mhm.
They were like, do it.
Mhm.
Even all the failures and all the kind of like, they're like, this is you, Jeremy. This is your personality. We can't get in the way of your personality. Like
Right.
they just knew. Even my dad said, stay there for more than a day.
Mhm.
He wanted me to stay there. He didn't want me to be like, I mean, I'm sure he was okay that I'm an entrepreneur now, but he wanted me to have some stability
Mhm.
because I was 30 years old and I'm
Mhm.
single. He wanted some stability. But when I quit, he made a joke of it. He didn't like force me back there. Like he
Right.
was very chill and mellow.
Right.
But in terms of our friend circle
Mhm.
and girls and like,
Yeah.
there's definitely like a thing of like, if you're not making tons of money as an iBanker or a
Mhm.
lawyer, even in conversations at lunch tables and Shabbos, and like, you feel it. You do
Right.
feel it's like, oh, okay. Like,
It's just the cost of doing it.
yeah, it's like okay, or like thinking that like well, how's that going? How's that like? Is that good? Are you making money? Like people are.
How
very
does that
blunt.
work? That's the question. So
Yeah.
how does that work? That means how do you?
Yeah.
How does that work?
Yeah, yeah,
That's
and expecting it to be another thing where it doesn't work out,
Right,
or expecting you
right.
to fail.
And also, you looked at your dad when he's like, "Should I do this?" And he went, "No." And you're like, your 8-year-old self was like, "That no is a yes."
Exactly.
He can never tell you no about anything.
Exactly.
Dad, should I do heroin? No. I got you. But no, that I guess part of it is the cost of doing business. But there is a legitimate. It comes from judgment and fear and all these things. But also, look, the modern Orthodox lifestyle is
Expensive.
not- it's expensive. It's not
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, you live in a smaller town that has lower this and lower
Yeah.
that, and not next to some massive community
Mhm.
with private schools and all
Mhm.
these things. So like, it does make sense, and I think it's built into the cake that riskier endeavors
Mhm.
and creative endeavors that are a longer game towards this success are discouraged.
Mhm.
I don't know if it comes from just people from the social faux pas of
Yeah.
it all.
It's also
it's probably
uncertainty.
rooted.
It's uncertainty. It's
Yeah.
like if you're an artist,
Yeah.
it could take you 10, 20 years to be successful.
Yeah.
No one wants that long of a time.
Right.
People want their kids and their family to be successful from day one. You
Yeah.
want to see
Yes.
the person getting a promotion and a raise.
I was so happy when Swag sold. Not so much because it's like awesome and it gives you more options, but more like I was like, finally, like Jeremy got that win.
Mhm.
That now retroactively, everyone who was giving him shit
Mhm.
is like, oh, like
Mhm.
he had the right idea.
Mhm.
Like he was here. And now he's leapfrogged like over
Mhm.
here. Like now he's a CEO.
Mhm.
Like now I'm working towards CEO, and now Jeremy just leapfrogged me. And it's like I'm like, oh, I hope like kids in high school and college see you, and are like, all right, like I can wait till I'm 35. I can work on something, and that's like that is now a plan for a kid from your town.
100%.
Because Jeremy Parker did it,
'Cause
which I
boomers-
think is awesome.
Yeah,
Boomers in the
me too.
end, like our parents' generation, they don't really care what you're doing. They care about success and making a living, making money, right? Like they could say, like, you've ever heard your dad like talk about somebody's thing, having no idea what it is? You know, they pretend to kibitz about things. No, I think he's doing something there with like the internet and t-shirt. He's doing very well with it. Oh, yeah, no, he's doing very well. There's like it's cups and I think it's it's there's the t-shirt swag. It's swag. Yeah, swag. Swag.
The internet's the future.
Yeah, no, it's something with the internet. I don't know, but thank God he's doing very well with it. But that happens
Yeah.
you could talk about that too, being acquired by something that gives it not just street cred amongst business to business, but like community street cred. Not that really mattered to you, but it's certainly nice to not have that resistance anymore, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, and it really did never matter to me. I will say that, but it's also like a weight lift. I don't have to worry about certain things that I used to worry about.
Right. Yeah, but it doesn't. Is it interesting? Like there are certain moments along a path where you finally kill that imposter syndrome, right? Where you say to yourself, I don't know if you've ever had this, but it's like, do I belong in this space? And then you get some kind of significant stride or victory that says, yes, I do. And people say imposter syndrome is an illusion. Like you're not an imposter once you're not like, you by doing it in and of itself, you're not. But there are these moments like in my, when I had a first song on a commercial, I was like, okay, I can legitimately say without lying to myself, I compose for TV. It's like, look what there's a song of mine there, or this and that. And Michael made a movie in the Ukraine, like did it, put it all together and made a movie, shot, organized everything. So until you actually turn those ideas and put them into actions and something happens from it, you're not, it's hard to perceive yourself. It's hard not to agree with the people perceiving you as attempting something versus being a thing.
100%. I remember, I think a week after we sold, I had dinner with you, Michael. And Michael, the first thing he says to me, he says, isn't it weird that like a week ago, you were just this entrepreneur, like no one knew what you were doing. And now one day changes, and now you're technically, people look up to you in some way.
Yeah. It was like a week ago, you were still figuring it out.
Yeah.
Today, you have all the answers, but nothing has
Nothing
changed.
changed.
Right.
Like-
How do you, what was your reaction to that?
I said, I think that's funny, but that's all perception. It's
Yes.
like outside perception never really mattered to me. It really doesn't. I couldn't care less. I couldn't care less about the girl I went to a Shabbos lunch with who thought I was broke,
Right.
thought I wasn't going to make it. It didn't matter to me. you know?
Especially because it's more like, that's what people are seeing, this perception of what seemingly seems like a switch.
Yeah.
Oh, he won
Yeah.
like a lottery. But it's almost, it's lost its sort of cachet, but in a healthy way. It's like, yes, you've been acquired by this big company, which looks to the outside world like this massive event, which it is. To other people, it seems like, oh, American Idol got this dream gig, but really, you work your way up to it, and to you, it's in a healthy way, feels very normal and natural.
I feel proud of it, and I get the most pride because I see my parents, how proud they are.
Yeah.
But to me, it's not an overnight thing. People from the outside see like, you had a better idea this time.
Right.
No, it had nothing to do with the idea. It was all about working my ass off and learning from all the failures to make this one better.
Do you remember what your response was when I said that to you? You're like, I don't know, man. I'm just gonna go to work tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
you're like,
nothing's
that's how I
changed.
got here. I
Nothing's-
just go to work every day.
Yeah. It's like what I found is, and I've been thinking a lot about this, is like, how do I when I started the business, making $1 million a year was like the dream. $1 million in sales to me seemed like impossible. That was like, I've never did it before, $1 million. We hit $1 million. Then the next thing is like, oh, I want to hit 10 million. Wouldn't that be amazing? That feels like it's an impossibility, 10 million. But always in the back of my head, it's like $100 million. I was like, it's a year. It's never going to happen. And then we hit 10 million, right? And now last year we did 30 million plus in sales, right? And this year we should do 60, right? We're growing in this way. And I'm thinking to myself, next year, no, I'm saying like next year, we might.
ransom situation.
Jeremy, can you give us more? Yeah.
No, I'm saying
no, congrats. It's
no,
great.
I'm saying next year.
I'm playing cool. Yeah, sure, yeah,
No,
yeah.
but I'm
Say it with us. You know,
You
we had a
$60
cool year. We had a good year too.
every day. Is that how
we
it works?
made like a couple bucks. I mean, we made like $10
Yeah,
last month,
we're.
something.
I think we're negative 300.
I gave
we got the
Michael
mic.
$10. It was cool.
We got the
Yeah.
mic. I had to borrow.
No, but I'm
10,
saying
I'm
so.
not-
Yes.
Next year, it's a possibility that we could break 100 million for the year,
Right.
which 7 years ago seemed an impossibility,
course.
impossible. And I was trying to put myself in.
Your college self looking at you now would be like, "Yo, my God!"
Yeah.
You'd be like, "Dude, relax."
Yeah, and
I know how I got here.
But how does it happen? And it comes down to one simple thing: consistency compounds.
Right.
I kept thinking to myself, like, every day, if you are working your ass off and you're showing up, and you're not necessarily being the best every day, but you're showing up and you're doing such hard work and you're treating customers fairly, or you're being creative, or you're working well with the team, every single day it just builds and builds and builds upon itself, and you get to this place which was unimaginable. It wasn't even like the realm of possibility. But you look back and like, well, how did I get here? That's how I get here.
Yeah. I make all these analogies to fitness because I'm not so into fitness, even though in your 30s you kind of have to be.
Yep.
But the idea is like everyone looks at it and they see this jacked guy and they're like, that's amazing. But I went to the gym once and nothing happened. I don't get it. I did a workout. It's like, yeah, if you go to the gym one time, nothing will happen. And if one day you become in amazing shape and your high school out of shape, college out of shape self looked at you, you'd be like, that's amazing. But 3 years it took every day showing up, applying that actual fitness. So I think with creativity, with entrepreneurship, it's all about, you know, an entrepreneurial fitness, a creative fitness, which involves showing up every single day and putting in the hours of unpleasant experience, which it is. It's and sweating and not liking it, but ultimately wanting to be in a certain place and arriving at a certain place where you are in shape. And that applies in business, in whatever endeavor you're doing, in any creative endeavor, in any entrepreneurial endeavor. You want to be in shape, which it feels like, thank God you are now, but it takes that consistency and continue. Because if you stop working out,
It
it's
stops.
like, you're not like, oh, I'm set now. I'm just going to sit with this body in a chair. It's like, no, you have to maintain it. And that is its own stress. Maybe talk about that. The stress of maintaining where you are and growing. Because like once you have things, people think there's this perception of, oh, once you make it, it's smooth sailing. And that's not true either. So maybe you could talk about dispelling that myth of what it means to really be in a place that is perceived as approved.
I honestly, I don't know the answer to that because it just happened so recently. So,
but the stress, the whatever it is.
oh, the stress. I'm trying to. I still work just as hard as I worked pre-deal.
Right.
So to me, it's like this is what I've been doing that's gotten me here. If I want to keep growing, I have to just work.
Just
the
to
same.
provide some context for people listening, your company, you were growing it. Swag was acquired.
Yep.
By
swag.com. We have about 85 people on the team now.
Yeah.
Was acquired by a company called Custom Ink. Custom Ink is the leader in our industry. They do north of $500 million a year in business, over 2,000 employees. So we are part of Custom Ink, but as its own entity. So we're still running as swag.com. Our team is growing.
But it's a different league now, playing in a different league.
It's a whole different league, and I'm with people who I've looked up to. You know, when I started the business, of course, everyone knows Custom Ink in our industry. Like, of course I know Mark Katz, CEO, the founder. Like, and now I'm in meetings with him. I talk to him on a daily basis. So it's like a different thing.
Sweet guy, really.
He really
He's a
is.
dear friend of the pod.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
Yeah, it's amazing.
But I'm saying like you don't know where you're gonna go, and that's it. Like when you get there, you look back and being like, it was definitely hard, but I see how I got there. But when you're looking in you don't know where you're ultimately gonna go. So I think you just have to be
top of the
consistent
hill,
with
foot
it.
of the mountain kind of thing too. It's like you don't know now this unexplored territory.
Yeah, and I also realized that there's no necessary goal. Like, it doesn't have to be the end because we sold. Like, it's just like a mountain. Like, you get to like a place, and then you still could climb up. They're still higher.
Right.
You reach one plateau, you could climb a bigger mountain. So, I've hopefully a lot of ideas of trying to get me to the next phase, but not feeling pressure. Like, I never felt pressure internally of like, am I gonna be successful? Because I didn't really care. I mean, how do you think about it? Like, I don't care about being successful. I care about enjoying what I do, and I care about feeling like what I'm doing means something. But it didn't.
Well, not successful as it projects externally, but internally successful as you define it, fulfilled and loving what you do, and it working and being able to sustain it.
And I think that also comes with failure because when we were 23,
yes, for sure.
I think we did care very much about being powerful, successful, 100%
Mark
Zuckerberg type figures. And then I think the more you fail, the more you're like, I have to find a different fuel because that's not going to work for me.
Yep.
Like, so I have to get nourishment out of it just by doing it.
100%. When I was younger, I'm trying to think of myself back with me and you. Like, we thought we were going to be the biggest company. We thought this was
Yeah.
going to be amazing, and you had these high hopes. I think it's like it's glamorized.
But if you're not enjoying the process, like on the music and like I'm doing a lot of comedy these days too, so like those processes, there are people in that game of fame and building an audience. They want to get there. They think they'll be happy when they get there. Like I want that. I want that lifestyle. I want that audience. I want that adoration. And for myself and for people I meet who are like really professionals, it's like no. They love doing the thing. They love creating the art, writing the music, writing the jokes, performing. It's the process that they want, and the fame or success is just a means to fuel that process, not the other way around. You're not doing this as a means to success. You want the success to be your means so that you can keep doing it.
100%.
So
That's when I wake up in the morning, I'm not like, I don't think about like the bigger picture, like I made it. That never crossed my mind. I'm thinking, well, what's the next feature I should build? And I get excited by talking to Steven, my designer, and brainstorming ideas of what we could build together. That's what I enjoy. I enjoy that. And if it works, great. And usually it doesn't work, but you learn from it and you make it better. And then ultimately it does work, you know?
So true. I'm sorry, you triggered my Gary Vee.
And then the next company you build, not only you'll be starting with a list of investors who want to throw money at you, a ton of contacts, a ton of talent, and so you could just build companies more and more, not more easily, but more efficiently and quicker and smarter. And you just do it at a higher level now.
100%, yeah.
You also find that people who aren't in love with that process and everything involved in it, including the unpleasantries, that the time will shake them out because they're like, eh. So it's not that they didn't have what it takes to necessarily make it, but maybe their priorities were wrong. The way they perceived success was, I want to get there and I want all that quickly. They don't want to have the patience and endurance to go through everything that it takes, those years and years and years of uncertainty, unpleasantness, but consistency and showing up for the hours to get there. You know? Yeah.
All right.
What do you suck at?
Intermittent fasting. I'm from 2 o'clock yet.
Any other final closing thoughts, personal notes? Because we really covered a lot
Yeah,
there. I
this
think that was informative.
This was fun. I mean,
You're our very first guest, you know?
Yeah,
Thank you for having me,
It was
guys.
really fun to talk about it, and it's also, I mean, I think the comparison between like what you're doing with entrepreneurship with what Ami's doing and what I'm doing is so clear and simple. And like, I don't know if I've ever heard any like artist talk to a business person this way. So this is cool. I hope people like it.
Yeah, I think the cross section is interesting and very it's informative for both. I'm just basically gonna repeat what Michael said, but I want the time on the camera. So there's nothing else to add. He's exactly right.
No, I'll say one thing for me is I live in Florida now. And I was saying right before the pod that I legitimately listen to your podcast because it makes me feel like I'm home. So this feels nice to see you guys and reconnect.
Oh, for sure. So you watch every episode in full.
I do.
Where do you watch?
I watch it in my apartment or when I'm walking on the beach with my daughter.
Which
I
platform?
listen.
Oh,
More listen. Yeah.
Like Spotify?
Spotify.
Wow. Yeah. So for us too, we talk about this process, and in the very beginning, right? Michael, remember those first this when we first started, and we had like a powwow about how this goes. And I think I said to Michael, like, look, I do a lot of fun things, but everything I do that's seemingly fun, I take very seriously. In other words, starting from the ground up, a podcast, and not trying not to worry too much about how many followers, how many views, all those things, even though you have to be aware of it, and then trying to adapt to see what we could do better. But for us, a lot of it has just been, our commitment is to do it, to episode after episode. And I think the first 15 minutes of each podcast was just about how hard that was to do. Any other feedback on our podcast?
No, I think you guys are great. I think it's getting more and more natural as you guys go, for sure.
Cool.
More listening to each other, we've heard.
Yeah.
You want to do a buckle up, baby, to set us
You
up?
can make us happen.
Yeah.
For a stinger?
Buckle up, baby.
I'll show you. 1, 2, 3.
Buckle up, baby.
Thank you so much to our good, dear friend, Jeremy Parker, as our very first debut guest on the Buckle Up podcast. Great talking.